Good evening, class. My name is Angel. Before the lesson, I want to start out with a little icebreaker, and just to cheer up the mood, get a little bright, be a little positive, make you laugh. I hope it does. It's one of my favorite videos. Sydney, click play. Okay, I'm back. Okay, so redlining is the topic today. Does anybody have any idea of what redlining is?
No.
Sydney, Henry?
No.
You sure? Okay, basically, a little history, U.S. history. After World War II, which ended around the 50s, we had a boom. It was a wartime boom, and veterans were coming back. So what was going on? The government, the U.S. government, created the Federal Housing Association, FHA, and what their aim was to move people from the cities out to the suburbs, and by doing that, can we put a pause?
I'm not sure.
I'll keep going. Redlining. Okay, redlining was the once common practice in which banks would literally draw a red line on a map, often along a natural barrier, to designate neighborhoods where they would not invest, stigmatize and denied access to loans and other resources. These communities often were populated by African Americans and other minorities. And of course, if you don't invest, you're not going to have businesses, stores, small businesses, and other services. And thus, these areas cannot retain a middle class. And also, what redlining did was produce a vicious cycle that I think is still in play today. So, banks would literally get maps of neighborhoods, of areas, get a red marker, a red Sharpie, and literally draw red lines. And that was legal. That was legal back in the day. That's how it was. And but they soon made it illegal. They outlawed it. Okay, so redlining created the growth of suburbia, the suburbs, as we know. During this time, it was post-World War II, and there was an increase in people. There was a boom, a wartime boom, economy boom, a lot of growth. So what the government did was create the FHA, the Federal Housing Association, and their aim was to move people from the city out to the suburbs. And this is when automobiles were growing as well. And the infrastructure was developing. And so yeah, the growth of suburbia. The thing was that what redlining did and the growth of the suburbs, it was more towards whites. At that time, it was 1950s, 1960s, and so this is around the civil rights movement. So you have to picture this. Back then, segregated everywhere. You were living somewhere, that I wouldn't live in. So this what was going on. So now you have whites migrating from the cities out to the suburbs. And there was a case as well where two returning veterans, one black and one white, they had the same credentials, and they went to the bank, and only one of them got approved. Why? That's just how it was back in the day. A lot of people said that this was to keep segregation alive, to keep segregation alive, to keep whites in one place and blacks in others, because it was thought back in the day that blacks would destroy everything, and that was just in their nature. Okay, So this brings me to my point about redlining. Just how back in the day redlining, they subsidized whites to move out, and they divested many, black families and for future generations to come. And so, for me, that is still alive. And in education, I want to work in an urban district. And I know that redlining is alive just because of the system that the schools are in, the school districts, the system that the school districts use. For example, did anybody go to an urban school, city? Any? No,
it was pretty rural.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So the difference is between, say, if you lived in a wealthy area, of course, your school is going to be, you're going to have a lot of resources, a lot of opportunities, nice facilities, new computers, because of the way your school gets its budget. And how does the school get its budget? Basically, you get 8, and this is from the Florida School District Statistical Report, 2012 to 2013. And so, what this says is that 18.1% of the school's budget comes from federal resources. Is that 35.5% comes from the state, and 46.3% comes from local resources, almost half. So this means is that schools get approximately half of their budget from the town, from local resources. So obviously it makes sense. All right, if you live in a wealthy area, you're going to go to another school. And if you go to a rural area, urban area, which is, there's a high concentration of poverty, of course the school is going to be poor as well. So that's where I see redlining today. Those people don't have the same, the students that go to that school don't have the same opportunities or same resources as others, as say the affluent, wealthy areas. And to me, it's more like systemic discrimination. So that's like modern redlining. And I just think we should change that. So as you can see, the system itself is very flawed. There's a lot of improvement that needs to happen. Preguntas, questions. Can you see the effect of redlining in our schools today?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nothing definite.
And how? Like, what do you see in the schools?
Well, in Tampa, there's like a very wealthy It's a very wealthy South Tampa school, but then in other schools, like they don't receive as much funding. They're not as good as schools. Like people equate going to plant as going to private school essentially, because they have so much money. So, at least in the wealthier area.
And you, Henry?
Yeah, well, my school was like it wasn't a bad area. It was, a lot of people like to call it the ghetto, but it really wasn't ghetto. But it was pretty bad. Like you could, like, certain times of the night if you walk out the school, you could get shot. It was like that. And our resources are really not that great. And from your explanation on, with the money coming from the local government, yeah, I could definitely see that.
As you reminisce or think about your high school experience, do you feel that it affected you? Did you feel the effect?
Yeah, because I mean, with not having a lot of funding, that means that we don't have a lot of resources or open to getting, the best quality teachers and what have you. That shit just.
Said reconnect. Do I click reconnect?